asked, what's the biggest geopolitical threat facing America? You said Russia. Not Al-Qaeda. You said Russia. In the 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back because the Cold War's been over for 20 years.
Russia does continue to battle us in the UN time and time again. I have clear eyes on this. I'm not going to wear rose-colored glasses when it comes to Russia or Mr. Putin, and I'm certainly not going to say to him, I'll give you more flexibility after the election.
All right. I just love seeing that because it just shows how wrong on Russia. Okay, joining us now is Matthew Continetti, editor-in-chief of the Washington Free Beacon and contributing editor to the Weekly Standard. Hey, Matthew, good to talk to you again, sir.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Okay, you wrote a great piece, our European president, and I think this one was on National Review Online, if I'm not mistaken. Today, as we've discussed earlier in this hour with Peter King and the panel, today he came out and first he talked about Hamas, but then he talked about Russia, and basically, he blamed Putin and they have to cooperate with the investigation. But, Peter King said, we're playing into Putin's hands here. We're playing his game by putting all of our chips and all of our concerns in the investigation, when basically we know what happened here, but it's what's going to be a result of that investigation, or why don't we do something now since we really do know what happened?
Well, I'd love that to happen, but unfortunately, Obama remains the president, and it's just not in Obama's nature to be swift in reacting to world events. There's always an investigation. There's always a procedure up those sanctions. In fact, he did that the day before the Malaysian Air flight was shot down. So what's he going to do when his investigation proves, as we all suspect, that the Russians are behind the insurgents who shot down the plane? More sanctions? I really don't know. I feel like he's reaching the point of diminishing returns with this current policy in Russia, and I'm not sure the White House knows what to do next.
Yeah, that you get that impression. You get that impression that all this is really just bothersome to him and an interruption of his fundraisers and campaign speeches. And hey, they don't like me, they're suing me, and and then his playing pool or playing golf or whatever. But of course, it's a very, very serious matter. Let's look at it from the point of view, as you write, our European president. I mean, we still have 2.5 years to go in this term of President Barack Obama. And Vladimir Putin, I don't think is finished by a long shot here, and the rest of the world watches. And now he wants to have a ceasefire with Hamas, as John Kerry says, so they can then address Hamas's concerns. I mean, what on earth is going on here?
I wish I could tell you. It's for most presidents, after they become lame ducks in their 6th year, which Obama has become, they turn to foreign policy. That's usually where presidents are able to exert the most influence. And remember, even after he lost Congress in 2006, President Bush was still able to launch the surge in Iraq and get Iraq to a much better place than it was for most of his presidency. The problem now is Obama is, not only is his domestic policy frozen in place, which it's been frozen in place more or less since the Republicans took the House in 2010, his foreign policy is in complete shambles. And I don't think you could even find Democrats, certainly Democrats in private, who would say otherwise. I mean, it's just as you said.
We just gave Iran 6 more months, and I could play you the sound bites of Obama in the State of the Union, and then the State Department shortly thereafter saying that if Iran doesn't agree by the deadline in July, I'll be the first one to put more sanctions in there. So instead of putting more sanctions, we're giving them money and loosening sanctions and giving them more time.
Next year, in addition to the House, they have to start thinking about what exactly they can do on foreign policy. And now, of course, you can't do much from Congress on foreign policy, but one thing they can do is address our defense budget and the fact that, in addition to all of these topics that we've discussed, Obama, throughout his presidency, has been ratcheting down the defense budget. He's seriously harming American readiness. So, of course, he's not involving us in any of these places, but even as he does that and the chaos grows, he's also weakening our defenses. I think that's one place where Republicans really need to start addressing seriously, and especially if they get to write a budget next year, of somehow correcting to get to write a budget next year, of somehow correcting some of the damage Obama has done in hollowing out our armed forces.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And let me ask you about the bear. The State Department not too long ago cited, well, now the plane is down, and Peter King said that if this investigation, if we put all our chips there and the investigation takes a year or whatever, then, you know, whenever it's done and it's over, okay, nobody will care about what that says in a year or so. So, I mean, Putin is getting away with. How encouraged is he and how emboldened is he by our European president? I'm going to take the two columns and put them together here.
Right. Well, remember, right before the plane was downed, the Ukrainian government had made advances on some of these separatist strongholds and, in fact, had reclaimed some of the cities that the insurgency had captured. And in response to that Ukrainian border, then we have the jet being shot down, and we have this very unstable international situation. We can talk about this investigation. The president can say, can and complain that the separatists aren't allowing America access to the crash site. But America really isn't the main player here. The main player, there are two, Ukraine and Russia, neither of which I would say are, you know, archetypes of stability and rational thought. And so we're in a very complex situation where the chances of miscalculation by either side are very great. And it only would take one miscalculation for there to be an actual invasion of Ukraine, I believe. And once that happens, I mean, we really are in unknown territory.
All right, talk about your piece on the Clinton Library.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you know, the Free Beacon is engaged in a dispute with the University of Arkansas library system, because we've done a series of articles based on the archives there, including our most, which were made about a decade after the case, where Hillary laughs about her handling of the case, about how basically she implies that her client, who was still alive at the time these tapes were made, was guilty, how they destroyed her faith in polygraphs. When we published all this material, the library sent me an angry note revoking our library card because we had failed to ask for permission before publishing these very damaging stories about Hillary Clinton. Well, of course, it turns out that the dean who sent me a letter is a Hillary Clinton donor. And we're in quite a fight with them because we believe that, you know, we're a journalistic organization, and to feel that we somehow have to ask for permission to publish materials to which the library does not even own the copyright is a violation of our First Amendment rights. I mean, we have the Washington Post and the New York Times and the Guardian newspapers publishing the most intimate national security secrets of the United States because of the Edward Snowden leak. I don't recall them asking for a permission slip.
Right.
And yet when the Free Beacon runs two pretty interesting investigative stories into Hillary Clinton's past, well, everything goes crazy, and we have our permission slip revoked.
And one of those stories, of course, involved the rapist that she defended, correct? And, of course, the publishing of the tapes. That's right, the tapes, and then, of course, the other one earlier in the year about the notes written by Hillary's best friend, Diane Blair, in which Hillary called Monica Lewinsky a narcissist. Editor to the Weekly Standard here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Got a lot in there about Obama and Putin, and also the Clinton Library allegedly coordinating with Clinton staff prior to the Free Beacon ban. Very interesting. All right, you know what's next. You know it. You love it. You got to have it. It's Gimme 5. right here and only here on the Steve Malzberg Show.